In the Campaign 2016 segment tonight, South Carolina and the aftermath of Saturday night's Republican debate. It was closer to an episode of American Gladiators at times, with the candidates unleashing brutal punch after brutal punch.
George Bush made a mistake. We can make mistakes, but that one was a beauty. We should have never been in Iraq. They lied.
Okay.
They said there were weapons of mass destruction. There were none, and they knew there were none.
I am sick and tired of him going after my family. My dad is the greatest man alive in my mind. And while Donald Trump was building a reality TV show, my brother was building a security apparatus to keep us safe, and I'm proud of what he did.
Marco went on Univision in Spanish and said he would not rescind President Obama's illegal executive amnesty on his first day in office.
First of all, I don't know how he knows what I said on Univision because he doesn't speak Spanish. And second of all, the other point that I would make...
Marco, si quieres, díselo ahora mismo, díselo ahora. En español, si quieres.
Look, this is a disturbing pattern now, because for a number of weeks now, Ted Cruz has just been telling lies.
Matter of
You are
principle,
the
and I'll tell you...
biggest liar. You probably are worse than Jeb Bush. You are the single biggest liar.
I got to tell you, this is just crazy, huh? This is just nuts, okay?
Harsh stuff, to be sure, and now Jeb Bush is deploying his big gun, former President George W. Bush, in hopes his brother will help him win the Palmetto State.
When the American president speaks, the world listens. You can trust Jeb Bush to be measured and thoughtful on the world stage. Our enemies and allies will know that when President Jeb Bush speaks, he will follow through on his words.
Joining us now with reaction from Washington, Washington Times editor Kelly Riddell, and with us in studio, Republican strategist Lisa Booth. Now, Lisa, this is a brawl. It was going back and forth. I got to tell you, I loved watching it. Who landed the punches, though?
Well, you're right. It was sort of an episode of American Gladiators. And I think some of the biggest punches are what we saw from Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio, and that explosive conversation between the two of them, and Ted Cruz even speaking Spanish to Marco Rubio to try to prove the point that, hey, I do know Spanish. And then also with, Donald Trump. I mean, I think it was interesting to see him sort of take the tack of attacking George W. Bush, because if you look at South Carolina, you've got 8 military bases. Veterans make up about 11% of the population. And last May, there was a poll that was conducted that found 54% of Republican primary voters believe that going into Iraq was the right decision to be made. Also, George W. Bush is about 84% approval rating in the state of South Carolina. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays off for him and if it affects him in any way.
So what do you say, Kelly? Will that hurt Donald Trump? By the way, CBS did a snap poll after the debate and still had Donald Trump not winning the debate. They had Marco Rubio winning the debate, but Donald Trump still with more than a 20-point lead on it. He's been known to say things that are provocative, and when everyone says, well, that's it, that's the thing that's going to take him down, doesn't seem to do it. Kind of plays into his demeanor, his persona.
Yeah, I mean, his supporters like to see strength from him. They like to see him be aggressive and deliver the first punch and the knockout punch. So it's hard to say whether his hardcore supporters will take offense to anything that happened in that debate. They might even gather to him more. What remains to be seen is will the Palmetto voters, just like you said, there's a lot of military bases, there's a lot of favorability with George W. Bush and entering Iraq. Will they take offense to the fact that he basically called George W. Bush a liar, saying that, he thought that there was weapons of mass destruction there and there really wasn't, and he lied to America. Those are really strong words that, today when I'm speaking to a lot of people in South Carolina, they did take offense to that. But we'll see.
So stay on this for a second. So there were a lot of liar back and forth, Rubio versus Cruz, Cruz versus Rubio, Donald Trump. Listen to what Donald Trump said just a few minutes ago, a couple hours ago today.
I've never seen anybody that lied as much as Ted Cruz. And he goes around saying he's a Christian. I don't know. You're going to have to really study that. He is a very unstable person. That's just my opinion.
So what about it, Kelly? Is that something, he seems like, I think at one point during that press conference, he said he was going to sue Ted Cruz.
Yeah, and he said that unless Ted Cruz apologizes, he's going to go forward with the lawsuit saying that he can't be president because he's a Canadian. Put all of that aside. Let's look at the strategy for these candidates. Donald Trump needs to win South Carolina, and he needs to win it by a margin like he won New Hampshire. I mean, if he wins South Carolina by double digits over Ted Cruz, who's his nearest competitor, then his path to the nomination is very clean, it's very clear, and he will have momentum. So by attacking Ted Cruz on the liar account, what is Ted Cruz's slogan? It's trust Ted, trusted. That he's a true, authentic conservative. What's the antithesis of that? It's being a liar. And that's also why you have Marco Rubio going after Ted Cruz for the same reason. But Marco's going after it for a little bit of a different strategy. Marco needs to beat Jeb Bush in South Carolina. He really
let
needs
me
that
say, let me bring this to Lisa. So it seems like the lines are fairly defined. You have the establishment lane, which is Bush, Rubio, and to a certain extent Kasich, and then the outsiders, the Trump versus Cruz. Trump clearly is concerned about Cruz. He wants to get him out of the way. Should he worry about any of the establishment candidates?
I don't think for now. I mean, I think Ted Cruz is his biggest threat. I think that's why you saw Donald Trump had actually originally put on an ad attacking Ted Cruz for sort of speaking outside of both sides of his mouth and also attacking him for being a Washington insider, which is interesting because your point about Republican primary voters sort of looking for this anti-establishment candidate right now, that's a damaging attack to try to lob against Ted Cruz. And I do agree with Kelly's point. I think that's why you see at these different rallies Ted Cruz being cognizant of that and the trust Ted in the background on all his banners and all his slogans. I mean, this is clearly an attack that he is a little bit worried about and trying to answer to. But I do agree also, if Donald Trump wins South Carolina, I don't know how you stop.
Especially he has a massive lead in Florida, which is coming up as well. Kelly, talk to me a little bit about Bush's strategy to attack Donald Trump. I mean, he says he's the only one who's done it. That snap poll I mentioned earlier, that CBS poll, they had him losing that debate on Saturday night.
He came in last place. I mean, I think it was even below Ben Carson, which is unbelievable. No one who's really taken Donald Trump on head-to-head has come out the victor. Let's just be honest. The people who have are now, a lot of them are out of this race. So Jeb Bush really, I don't know if he's taking Ted. I don't know if his plan really needs to be the establishment player and to get the establishment vote to coalesce around him, and then he becomes a real viable threat to Donald Trump. In order for him to do that, he needs to take home number 3 in South Carolina. So I think that you see from a strategy perspective Donald Trump recognizing that, because I think he'd rather go against a Jeb Bush than a Marco. I think he'd rather go against a Marco Rubio than a Jeb Bush. And if Jeb Bush takes 3rd place and Marco takes 4th, I think that's more of a threat to Trump.
Well, and right now, Real Clear Politics, Lisa, has Marco Rubio in 3rd place. So you have Jeb Bush, you have Donald Trump, Ted Cruz, and then Marco Rubio in 3rd place. So should Jeb be looking for that 3rd place, that 3rd lane out of South Carolina instead?
I think he should, but I also think it's tough for Jeb Bush right now. He's been a lackluster candidate, and I liken it to dating, right? The more desperate you are, the less becoming you are to, you know, potential person that wants to date you or to a voter. And we've seen a lot of desperation from Jeb Bush, and so I just think his path is just not there for me.
Everyone that tries to pull that strategy, think about Chris Christie, he went after Marco Rubio, and then it hurt him. Jeb Bush going after Trump, it seems to be hurting him. It seems like the only one who's allowed to do that strategy is Donald Trump. Lisa, Kelly, we're going to say thank you very much.